Hey everyone, this is Lunar Echoes, and today we're going to be talking about the whole VShojo situation that's happening right now. If you're watching this video, you probably already know what's going on. One of the biggest VTuber agencies has recently been caught up in a scandal. Apparently, they have been taking money, or I should say, not paying money to their VTubers. There have been at least 2 VTubers that have come out now saying that they are owed money from this agency. And on top of that, they have not paid a charity over $500,000. If you don't know what I'm talking about, definitely go and look it up. There are plenty of videos out about it right now. The charity in question was the IDF, which is the Immune Deficiency Foundation. And like I said, this agency has not paid them over $500,000, as well as has not paid a couple of the VTubers, from what I understand, for several months, actually. So today we're going to be doing some readings, asking questions to my spirits regarding the situation. There are a lot of things that I personally would like to know that haven't been divulged yet. This is all for entertainment purposes. I am not affiliated with any of the parties that have been involved with this situation. So I just want to say that off the rip. But I do have a lot of questions from my spirits, and so hopefully we'll be able to get some answers today. Let's get into it. So the first question that I want to know is, did VShojo do this on purpose? And if they did they not think that they would get caught? It was mentioned in a couple of the videos that allegedly they were not aware, or they forgot, they didn't realize that it was happening, at least for the IDF. But I feel like surely someone knew, especially when you have other people, other VTubers stepping up and saying that they haven't been paid for months. But let's take a look. Trying to do this while behind a camera is not exactly easy, so bear with me, y'all. We have 2 cards that fell out. Take a look at those. See what we got so far. All right, we got the Chariot, we've got the Sun, we've got Rebellion, which is the Hierophant, in reverse. Six of Cups in reverse, the Magician in reverse, 7 of Cups in reverse. All right, let's take a look at what we got here. Ooh, okay. All right, so we ended up pulling the Chariot, the Sun, the Hierophant in reverse, 6 of Cups reversed, the Magician reversed, and the 7 of Cups reversed. So as far as the Chariot is about control, it's about direction, it's about willpower, as the card says, determination. So pulling this card is kind of telling me that someone within this agency, someone within VShojo, was definitely determined to take the company into a specific sort of direction. They had a goal in mind, and I'm sort of gathering that they were so determined to reach this goal, or whatever they had in mind. They were so determined to get there for the company that they didn't really care who they were manipulating. They didn't really care to what end they were reaching that goal. To me, so far, just with this card alone, it's definitely screaming that this was intentional, that this was purposefully done, that this wasn't an accident. Now the Sun card. The Sun is typically a positive card. It typically represents, say, like success, optimism, happiness, joy. But in this particular situation, and for the question that I had asked was whether or not VShojo did this on purpose, or whether it was truly just an accident, or someone within the agency just forgot to pay their VTubers, forgot to pay charity over $500,000. For this particular situation, I feel like the Sun is definitely saying that the truth itself will be illuminated soon. As in, soon everyone's going to have a very clear view, a very clear understanding. The truth is eventually going to be revealed, is what I'm gathering from this card, saying that soon there won't be any more secrets. What's hidden is going to be exposed, and that any theft or wrongdoing on VShojo's part is likely to be uncovered. And basically, whatever the truth is will eventually come to light one way or the other, is what this card is telling me. Now, the Hierophant. Typically upright, the Hierophant can represent like authority, traditions, traditional values, sort of mentors, wise counsel, wise teaching, that type of thing, learning. But in reverse, it can also represent intolerance. It can represent rebellion, as the card says. It can represent sort of, how do I explain this? Just sort of a break from tradition. It could represent sort of like rebelling against what is established as a norm, if that makes sense. It can also sort of point to like a breakdown in authority, or a break away from sort of morality or ethical structures. As far as this particular situation, I would say that this card is really sort of leaning towards a lack of integrity within the company. That's how I'm perceiving this. A lack of integrity, a complete disregard for the company's values or what the company stated their values were, which could be part of the reason that they're in this situation now, that whoever was acting was doing so without concern for any values or morals or sort of any ethical standards. Now, the Six of Cups is a card of nostalgia. It's a card of like happy memories. When you think of the past, you think of old friends, you think of nostalgia, you think of like the good old days and reminiscing. That's the Six of Cups. When the Six of Cups is in reverse, it could point to the future in certain cases, but it could also point to someone who is sort of stuck in the past. It could point to someone who is not letting go of, say, like the good old days, not allowing themselves to move on, not allowing themselves to release, which is what it says on the card. Hit my camera. In this situation, I feel like this card is definitely implying that someone within the company may be using or abusing past relationships, those connections that they have or did have in the past, as a way to manipulate people within the company, possibly manipulate the VTubers. And actually, come to think of it, Iron Mouse did mention in her video that she felt she was obligated to continue working with the company, or she felt that she had a lot riding on her shoulders. I believe she did mention that in her video. And it was the first thing that came to mind when she said that, was like someone was manipulating her into believing that everything was riding on her shoulders and that she didn't have a choice but to keep going with this company. She didn't have a choice but to feel like she was responsible for everyone else's happiness and everyone else's success within the company. And that's what I think of when I think of this card, when I think of the Six of Cups in reverse, that somebody within the agency may have used their relationship with her, connection with her, to sort of lure her into a false sense of security, or sort of use her to hide the theft that was happening in the background, sort of under the impression that they could trust her, or that she could trust them, or that they had good intentions. That's exactly what I think of when I see the Six of Cups reversed. Like, yeah, we need you. You're the face of the agency. You're the most successful VTuber that we've got. Without you, we wouldn't be as successful. Without you, everybody else within this agency wouldn't be able to grow like they do. Without you, we wouldn't be able to continuously help those in need or donate to charity. It's really kind of fucked up. Now, the next card we have is Magician. As above, so below. The Magician can do pretty much anything that they put their mind to. The magician has every element, every tool at their disposal to be able to manifest their goals. However, the magician in reversed talks about deceit. It talks about, what does the card say? Trickery. Yep, talks about trickery, talks about deceit, talks about illusion. So in reversed, this card is talking about manipulation and sort of abuse of power. Again, seems to be the theme here. It's sort of, to me, it says that someone within the company was using their skills and using their resources. Again, like I said, the magician has all resources available to them to make their goals a reality. But for this company, someone was using those resources, was using those skills. Instead of just manifesting things the ethical way, they were using it to deceive people instead. They were misusing their power, most likely for personal gain. They weren't being completely honest. Again, this card is just reinforcing that, once again, VShojo as a company, as a whole, whoever was responsible for this knew exactly what they were doing. This was completely intentional, according to the cards, of course, and that it was essentially just deception on their part. And then we come to the Seven of Cups reversed. Now, upright, the Seven of Cups typically represents reflection. It could represent sort of like daydreaming, wishful thinking, having fantasies or imagining things in your head, all of the possibilities that you have before you. If you have to make a choice, the Seven of Cups would represent you thinking about all of the options that you have, okay? But in reverse, it's sort of being stuck in your head. It's escapism. It's wishful thinking. It's chasing pipe dreams and having really unrealistic goals or desires, but not really being grounded in reality, if that makes any sense. And I just think about, at the beginning of this, my question was, did they do this on purpose? And if so, did they not think they would get caught? This card to me is saying no. It was wishful thinking on their part. They were so drunk on power and misuse of funds that they didn't even stop to think that anything bad was going to happen. We're not sure exactly how long this has been going on. I know in one video that I watched, one of the VTubers had said since last year they were owed money. But however long it was going on, whoever was behind this, whoever was the reason behind the situation that VShojo is in now, really was just wishful thinking the whole time. They weren't grounded in reality. They didn't actually stop to think about the consequences of what would happen down the line if they got caught. They were in their head. They were daydreaming. All right, I'm going to zoom in a little so you guys can actually see the cards a little bit better. But yeah, overall, as far as this question is concerned, there's no doubt in my mind that this was done on purpose. There's no doubt in my mind that whoever was behind this had a goal in mind. They were determined. They were very determined to reach that goal. What that goal is, I don't know right now, but they were so determined to see maybe the company succeed that they didn't care how they did it. Or maybe it was just for personal gain. They were so determined, whatever their goal was, they did not care who they stepped on or who they hurt along the way. In their mind, they didn't think about what would happen when they got caught. Because like I said, with that Seven of Cups, they were in their head the whole time. They were wishful thinking. It was all just an illusion. They were trying to escape from any sort of consequences or rational thinking. They were caught up in the power that they had and the manipulation. They weren't going about things ethically at all. But as the Sun card tells us, pretty soon, everything that they've been hiding is going to come out. It will be revealed. And then we're going to have all the details and really see just how long this deceit and this misuse of power and this manipulation has been going on. All right. All right, and then the next question that I would like to know is, how does VShojo as a company, how does the company feel about everything that's been released so far? How do they feel about their name being put out there? How do they feel about being involved in what is now or will be considered a scandal? Again, it's so difficult to try and shuffle cards from behind a camera. I'm weird about the way that I shuffle my cards. I like to keep my cards as straight as possible. I don't like for my cards to be bent. I'm sure it's a neurodivergent thing since I am neurodivergent. So I shuffle my cards both ways. I shuffle them from the top like this. And then you can see they're sort of like, I don't know if you can see on camera. They're sort of bent a little. So then I go back. And then I bend them the opposite way. All right, let's see what we got. Next question. Like I said, how does the company as a whole feel about all of the information that's been released? Try to straighten these out so you all can see better. Okay, there we go. So we've got Page of Wands upright, Chariot reversed, Chariot again. We got Judgment. On here it says Last Judgment, but it's the Judgment card. And then we've got the Star in reverse, Page of Cups upright, and the Four of Cups upright. Okay. Okay, so starting off with the Page of Wands. Now, typically, the Page of Wands can represent, say, like curiosity, exploration, feeling adventurous, feeling inspiration. What else? I'm thinking of like wands and fire, feeling ambitious and confident and creative, and just new ideas, new interests, that type of thing. Just think overall new and just feeling inspired. Okay. As far as this particular situation with the company, I'm getting that they're still sort of in the process of discovering or navigating exactly what to do regarding the situation. It could also indicate them wanting to sort of control the narrative or maybe present themselves in a more positive way. Someone is viewing this as an exciting opportunity. I'm not sure how I feel about that. I wonder if they're going to try and rebrand themselves as a company. And I know that the company as a whole is not just one person, right? It's a multitude of people. But yeah, for the company, just as one entity, so far the Page of Wands is telling me that they're kind of feeling enthusiastic about what's happening and that they're viewing it as possibly a fresh opportunity for the company. Now, this is interesting when you combine it with the Chariot in reverse, because as I said, upright, the Chariot, represented control, sort of taking control of your life and really taking the wheel, steering your own path. But in reverse, it's all of the opposite, of course. It's a lack of control. It's feeling lost. It's feeling like maybe they're not entirely sure as a company how to proceed, despite feeling, or potentially feeling enthusiastic about a fresh start or a new direction with the company. They're not entirely sure how to make that happen. I'm seeing chaos within the company, which is to be expected given such a big scandal like this. But just people in general within the company feeling overwhelmed, feeling unsure of how to move forward. Yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty self explanatory, especially when you've got the judgment card, which is, this says last judgment on the card, which is self evaluation. But really, this is a reckoning. This is a call for accountability. This is, as far as the company is concerned, it's really talking about how they are about to face the consequences of their actions, or at least of the actions of whomever caused this whole situation, this whole mess. They're being confronted by their actions, or they're being confronted about what they've done. You could even say, they're facing judgment. Just in general, they're facing judgment, both internally, like within the company from people who work with them, but also externally. As we saw, a lot of people are making videos about everything that happened. So with everything being released, well, with what we know now currently, everything that has been released to the public, this company, VShojo, is facing judgment from both people who work for the company and weren't aware of what was happening, but also from everyone else finding out about the situation. The card itself is more than just judgment. It's more than just a reckoning. It's a call for accountability. Really, the question that this company needs to be asking themselves is, are they ready to make the changes needed to make things right? Are they ready to make things right? Are they ready to actually take accountability for what has happened, for the theft or the deception that has been going on apparently since last year at the very least? They're really going to need to evaluate themselves as a company, evaluate what they stand for, evaluate their values, evaluate their morals, and determine if they are ready to actually step up and own up to what they did. And then next up, we have the star. Upright, the star typically represents, say, like hope. Feeling inspired, not in the same way as a page of wands, though. It's more like being able to see the light at the end of the tunnel is really how I would sum up this star card. In reverse, which is what we have here, the card itself says lack of faith. I'm seeing that there are people within the company that are feeling a loss of hope. They're feeling sort of demoralized. They're lacking faith on whether or not things are going to be able to be fixed within the company. I'm also getting, pair this with the judgment card that we just went over. I'm also seeing sort of shame. People within the company are feeling ashamed, whether it's of themselves or within the company in general. There's definitely a heavy sense of pessimism, a heavy sense of loss, and just a general sort of lack of faith in the future of the company because of what's happening, and because of the disappointment that's been, the disappointment that they're receiving both within the company, but also, like I said, publicly since these videos have been made. Any sort of optimism that some of the people within the company may have had, is gone now. And of course that's what's going to happen when your company is involved with a scandal. But there are a lot of people I'm seeing, just based on this card, that are losing trust and losing faith in the company. I would not be surprised if a lot of people end up quitting over this, if they haven't already, to be honest. Yeah, for sure, I would say that this scandal and everything that's been released so far is definitely taking a toll on VShojo as a company, and not just their reputation, not just their public image, but also emotionally and mentally for both the VTubers who were signed on with them, but also employees within the company as well. It's definitely taking a heavy mental and emotional toll on everybody. Okay, moving on to the Page of Cups. As you can see, the card says youthful emotions, and that is because the Page of Cups is sensitive. Okay, the Page of Cups represents someone who is kind, affectionate, They're very nurturing. They attempt to be very helpful. They know how to be introspective. They're very sensitive to everyone's emotions. And so that is the type of person that is represented by the Page of Cups. Now, in relation to the situation that we have here, as far as the company and how, as a whole, how is the company feeling regarding, all of the videos and everything that have been released? This to me tells me that while there are people within the company who definitely feel bad, they want to start over, they want to make things right, they're feeling remorseful about everything that's happened, and they definitely know that they want to, what's the word I'm looking for? They want to sort of approach everything with tactfulness and with sensitivity. I'm getting that maybe some of the higher ups are wanting to sort of genuinely just sort of come clean with people within the company and come clean about everything and work to remedy the situation, work to regain trust of both people within the company, but also the general public after everything that's happened. But the thing about the Page of Cups is that they're not exactly mature. Pages are very much like children. They are not like the kings or the queens that have all of the experience and maturity that comes with having lived a full life. The pages are still very much, in a sense, children. So as far as the Page of Cups is concerned, as far as emotional empathy is concerned, this is telling me that while people within the company, while people within VShojo, maybe some of the higher ups, may feel a genuine longing to come clean and to make things right and try and restore, try and restore trust. Based on the Page of Cups, I'm not getting that they really have enough maturity or experience in life to actually take on the complexity of the situation. They're not there yet. Unfortunately, regardless of the intentions that they may have, they don't have the maturity needed to be able to properly navigate the situation. And then the last card we have is the Four of Cups. And so just bringing in the Page of Cups into the interpretation of the Four of Cups, which typically talks about, as the card says, apathy, feeling some sort of like emotional dissatisfaction, feeling sort of stuck, feeling unfulfilled. Again, with the Page of Cups, they may want to make things right. They may want to approach the situation with sensitivity and with emotional maturity, but unfortunately, they can't. And that is leading to a sense of apathy. It's leading to a sense of extreme dissatisfaction. It's leading to people feeling really disconnected, feeling disconnected emotionally. I'm seeing people are struggling with understanding how to respond emotionally, most likely because they're feeling overwhelmed by everything that's happening. And they're so focused on their own issues and things that are happening in their life that they're missing opportunities, or they're lacking the emotional maturity to be able to take advantage of opportunities to actually engage with other people within the company or with the situation as a whole. They're missing those opportunities that are needed for them to actually be able to connect and start to fix things and start to rebuild that trust. So overall, for this card, I'm just really getting a lack of emotional fulfillment, a sort of a sense of being stuck in their situation. They are not entirely sure. Again, they don't see a way out. They don't know what's needed to be able to navigate the situation emotionally. And again, going back to the Page of Cups, it's because they're just not experienced enough. They're just not mature enough to be able to properly navigate a situation like this. So overall, apart from the Page of Wands, I'm definitely seeing that a lot of people within the company are just very confused. They're feeling a lot of regret, a lot of shame over everything that's happening. Definitely a loss of direction, a loss of control, a loss of how to deal with things emotionally. But people do want to, they want to make things right. I'm seeing that there are people that want to rebuild. They want to make things right. They want to, again, rebuild that trust and that following and the reputation that they once had. They're just not entirely sure how to get there. And again, with the Page of Wands and the card that says enthusiasm, there is some hope amongst some people within the company. There is still some energy of people wanting to move forward. But really, when you take all of the other cards into consideration, it kind of feels more like an attempt to just sort of regroup as a company, or sort of, like I said, rebrand, find a new way forward, turn over a new leaf, rather than an actual sincere, clear, well thought out plan of how they're going to actually make things right and move forward ethically. All right. The next question I would like to know personally is, how does the Immune Deficiency Foundation feel about this? And do they blame Iron Mouse in any way for what happened? Not that I think they necessarily would, but you never know. How does the IDF feel about the scandal that has happened? And do they hold Iron Mouse secretly responsible in any way? Do they have any type of feelings about Iron Mouse, given her affiliation with the agency? We're just going to do a 3-card spread for this one. All right, so we got 2 of Wands, 10 of Cups, and the 7 of Wands reversed. Okay, so starting with the 2 of Wands, I see this card talking about choices. Basically choices that need to be made, and trying to figure out exactly what they're going to do, planning out exactly what they're going to do in the future, trying to understand the next steps after suffering from a financial loss. I mean, that's what we're going to call it for now, because up until the funds have actually been given, up until they receive exactly what they're owed, it is currently a financial loss. And so with the 2 of Wands representing planning and decision making, I'm seeing that they're basically trying to weigh their options and figure out how to move forward. There's definitely they're going to need to be strategic in how they move forward, but that's not surprising given that they're an entire charity, an entire organization. You know, whenever a charity or an organization moves forward after suffering from any type of financial loss, there's always going to need to be strategy involved. But I see that with the 2 of Wands, they're definitely just weighing their options. With the card saying New Horizons, I'm seeing that the IDF definitely understands that they have power to control the direction that they plan on taking. It's just all about, like I said, developing a plan of action and then sticking to it and figuring out a way out of such a difficult situation. And then we have the 10 of Cups. And as you can see, the card itself says family union. The 10 of Cups itself, upright, typically talks about family, happiness, close ties or connections with people, friendship. So in my original question that I asked, which was one, how does the IDF feel about everything that's going on? And do they in any way feel some type of way about Iron Mouse because she was associated with VShojo? The answer is no. I didn't think it was going to be a yes, let's be real, because she was also a victim as well. But again, just asking for entertainment purposes. But with the 10 of Cups, I'm definitely seeing that it's a no. She is family to them. She will always be family to them. They're never going to hold anything that has happened with VShojo against her. It's just not happening. They're definitely more focused on their mission, which is to help those in need, more than they are worried about dealing with a scandal. At the end of the day, like, they have a mission, they have a primary focus, and that is what they're going to continue focusing on. Of course, like I said, with the Two of Wands, they're definitely continuing to work on a strategy on how they're going to move forward in the midst of everything that's happening. But bottom line is, Iron Mouse is family. She's always going to be family. And that's pretty much all there is to it. They would never hold anything like this against her. And then the last card that we have is the Seven of Wands in reversed, which talks about anxiety. It talks about threats. It talks about doubt. As you can see, the card itself says lost confidence and just worry, and also feeling attacked. And so this to me is saying that the IDF, they feel vulnerable. They're in a situation where they've suffered a financial loss. And, they could definitely look at that as being an attack against them and against their charity. And I see that they're feeling a bit discouraged, despite the fact that, they are figuring things out. Like we talked about with the Two of Wands, they know that they need to strategize, and that they've got a lot of decisions and things like that to make. But it's not going to stop them from feeling like they've been wronged. And that's because they have. It's not going to stop them from feeling like they are put in a situation of vulnerability. It's not going to stop them from feeling like they've been betrayed, essentially. And so that's what we're seeing here. Overall, with this reading, I'm showing that, yes, they feel absolutely betrayed. They feel like they were taken advantage of, because they were. I'm seeing with the Two of Wands, they're weighing their options. They're strategizing. They're deciding exactly where to go from here. But as far as the question as to whether or not they feel any type of way about Iron Mouse regarding the situation, the only feeling that they have for her is love. And that's it. They're never going to hold her accountable for what happened. After all, Iron Mouse is also a victim. But this is definitely something that they're going to feel the sting of for a while. All right, the last thing I'm going to ask is, will VShojo ever be able to recover from this scandal? Or is their reputation just completely tarnished? That's what I want to know. Are they ever going to be able to recover? Or is this it? Is this too much for the company to be able to handle and bounce back from? Okay, cards are bent again. Oh, see, it doesn't show up on camera like it does in person. All right, let me straighten these back out so that you can actually see them. Still can't see it. There we go. Mostly. All right, so I pulled the Hermit in reverse, Ace of Pentacles reversed, King of Pentacles reversed, King of Wands reversed, the Ace of Cups, and the Ten of Swords reversed. All right, so we've got the Hermit reversed. The Hermit upright typically talks about like introspection, meditation. When I think of the Hermit, I think of just sort of like retreating into oneself, just taking a look at yourself as a whole in order to sort of find meaning and wisdom in your life. Okay, as far as the question, as to the fate of VShojo as an agency. This card for me is sort of telling me that they're not really able to introspect. The company is not really able to look inward and take responsibility for everything that's happening. They're not doing the self-reflection. They're not really, at this point in time anyway, able to find a way out of the current situation. They're just not in a place where they're really acknowledging their mistakes, or not just their mistakes, but really the full impact of what's happened, like long term. I think that's going to make it difficult for them to recover, because you can't gain the trust back of people within the agency or within the general public if you don't have self-awareness and accountability. And in my last reading, or the reading from earlier, I mean, you may have good intentions. There may be people that want to, like I said, restore balance and restore that trust, but with a lack of emotional maturity, it's coming up again here with the Hermit reversed. They just don't have that self-awareness. They don't have that ability to actually look within and acknowledge everything that's happened, or everything that will happen as a result of the scandal. Things aren't exactly looking great from here, just based off this card alone. It could hint at narcissism. It could hint at whoever leading the company could end up sort of withdrawing and alienating themselves instead of actually learning from the experience, is basically what I'm gathering from this card. And then we have the Ace of Pentacles in reverse. Now, upright, the Ace of Pentacles typically talks about like financial opportunities, abundance, but really financial opportunities is what I gather from the Ace of Pentacles upright. But in reversed, it talks about missed opportunities, as the card says. So let's say, yes, it says missed opportunities. It talks about materialism. It could reference greed. It could reference wasting your resources. For this particular reading, I am seeing that the company as a whole, just they're suffering from, or they will be suffering from, a lot of financial losses and missed opportunities as a result of what has happened. And again, bringing back in the Hermit card in reverse, talking about how someone really isn't going to have the wisdom to be able to see the impact that this scandal will have on the company, not just short term, but in the future. And then moving forward, we see missed opportunities within the Ace of Pentacles. This is going to result in financial losses in the future. This is going to result in missed opportunities for this company that potentially would have been able to help them get back on their feet and restore their reputation. This is going to lead to I'm seeing, like an inability basically for this company or for people to be able to make stable, profitable decisions for the agency. They're going to continue to experience this financial instability as a result of their actions. Recovering financially from this, or rebuilding that trust and rebuilding their reputation, is not going to be easy. Especially if you have got people running the company who lack the emotional maturity and the wisdom needed to be able to properly take accountability and make things right, unfortunately. Yeah, I'm seeing that the damage that they've caused, or whether the damage that they have caused by their actions, including the damage that we don't yet know about, is going to seriously hinder them in any new endeavors, any rebranding, anything new that they attempt in the future is seriously going to be hindered or blocked because of what is happening or what has happened. That's what I'm seeing from these two cards alone. So again, so far, the outcome's not looking great. And then moving on to the King of Pentacles. So just keep in mind everything that I've said so far, right? The King of Pentacles. When you think of the King of Pentacles, you typically think of the business person, okay? The King of Pentacles is wise. They are hardworking. They are reliable. They are organized. They have excellent business sense. Okay? Like, they are the person that is the most ideal to run a business. They know exactly how to get everything done. They're a provider, excellent managers. Like, they're just all around good people who are also very reliable, protective, and have great business sense. In reverse, they're stubborn, they're impatient, they're greedy, they tend to be sexist. Not all of them, but this is just more or less the archetype. They tend to be kind of sexist, they tend to be insensitive, they tend to be materialistic, wasteful, dishonest, just everything that you don't want in someone who is running or managing a business. Regarding this reading and knowing everything that I've said previously, this basically just ties into everything that I've been talking about. The King of Pentacles reversed, to me, points to, again, a lack of leadership, mismanagement of funds, financial instability. The leadership within this agency is struggling. The people who are in charge of everything are probably too focused on, I would say, what's happening in the here and now, or what's happening in the near future, to really think about the long-term impacts and how their company is going to stay afloat long-term, which again leads back to just that emotional immaturity, not having the wisdom needed to properly know how to navigate a situation like this. It could also be narcissism. They may lack the wisdom and the understanding because they are too focused on themselves and how all of this impacts them directly, rather than stopping to think about everything that they've built and how their actions, or how the actions of the company, are affecting everyone else. And whoever's in charge of the agency is not able to get a hold of this situation and actually navigate it with wisdom and with authority and in practicality, and make actual good decisions. I don't think that this company is going to be able to dig themselves out of a hole, unfortunately. Just the top 3 cards alone are pointing to a serious lack of direction, a serious lack of decision making, like proper decision making. And again, I'm willing to bet it's just because the people who are leading everything are just not experienced enough. They're not mature enough to know how to properly deal with what has happened and how to properly look forward to the future and make decisions that are going to be beneficial for the company in the future. And I know that I pretty much mentioned narcissism, I believe, a couple of times now, but now we're getting down to the King of Wands. So the King of Wands upright, here's the thing. The King of Wands upright is charismatic, okay? He is, just in terms of the card itself and just the general archetype, he's a gentleman. He's charismatic. He's creative. He's assertive, but in a good way. He's not overbearing. He's passionate. He's confident. He's sexy. Okay, this is the type of person that the King of Wands typically is. In reverse, however, they are bossy. They tend to be patriarchal. They're full of themselves, egotistical, arrogant as heck. Okay, they're impatient, again, intolerant. They can be very cruel. They can be very domineering towards their loved ones, towards their co-workers or anyone working for them. That is unfortunately that's part of the archetype. The kings and the queens reversed, they all tend to be they can be abusive. They can definitely be abusive. And so again, when I talk about narcissism or people being narcissistic, we've got the King of Wands in reverse here, which is talking about, again, the lack of direction within the agency, the lack of leadership, the lack of vision and understanding where they should go from here. But it could also mean that whoever is running things not only do they not have a clear plan of how to fix the crap that they're in, but instead of being proactive, and instead of actually trying to go about things with any sort of strategy, they're being reactive. They're just dealing with things as those things come to them. They don't really have a whole lot of confidence, despite the fact that they're full of themselves and egotistical. And because of this, it only makes their poor decision making that much worse. Like, this is somebody who is so arrogant and full of pride that regardless of all of the things that are happening, even though they may have people behind the scenes running to them and saying, look, we've got all of these different fires that we need to put out, and they're looking at this person for direction as to how to deal with it, this person is so full of themselves that instead of making decisions from a place of balance, from a place of humility and understanding, they would rather come across as domineering and bossy. They would rather shout at their employees that it's their faults instead of owning up to what happened, instead of owning up and understanding that anything that happens within your company is your fault. Unfortunately, if you were supposed to oversee things, if you were supposed to be managing a company or managing a department, anything that happens within that department is a direct result of your mismanagement or your poor management skills. But they're too far, they're so prideful that they're refusing to admit that. They're refusing to even acknowledge that. And more than likely, that's going to be the downfall of the company. It's not even just the scandal. It's not even just the theft or the deception or the financial losses that have happened. It's the fact that you've got people running the company, or someone running the company, who doesn't know how to properly run a company. Unfortunately, they don't know how to make sound decisions. They are full of themselves. They don't have the emotional stability or awareness or maturity. They don't have the wisdom. They don't have the experience needed to properly run a country. Not a country. They don't have the maturity or the wisdom needed to properly run an agency or a company. And they are going to end up being the reason that the company goes under, if it does. And then we have the Ace of Cups. The Ace of Cups really is a card of healing. It's a card of nurturing. It can be a card of, say, like creative inspiration, but it really centers around emotions and healing and just nurturing relationships. As far as this reading is concerned, the Ace of Cups to me shows that there is potential for healing. There's potential for the company to be able to start fresh. But that's only if the agency is able to actually, like I said, take accountability and have that emotional maturity needed, and they're able to actually be genuine with everyone, with the people that they've hurt, with the victims, with the general public, with the people within the agency. If they're actually able to be genuine and emotionally mature about things, then there is a chance, there is a potential for healing and renewal. But with the rest of the cards and with everything that I've discussed so far, it's kind of a fat chance, honestly. But it's there, however small. There is the possibility of them being able to turn things around through sincerity, if they show true, genuine empathy, and perhaps like rebranding the company. And when they do, maybe having like a business model or slogan that, not even a slogan, just like rebranding the company and having a business model that really focuses on righting their wrongs, restoring those emotional connections, and rebuilding trust. It's going to take a lot of work though, but it is a possibility. It is there. Maybe if they get rid of the people who lack wisdom and emotional maturity and responsibility, then maybe. And then we have the Ten of Swords reversed. Now, the Ten of Swords, when it's upright, it talks about failure. It talks about feeling anguish. It talks about just deep pain and deep sorrow. However, when it's reversed, it talks about the possibility of a fresh start. It talks about the possibility of releasing the pain. It talks about the possibility of recovery, as we see on the card here. As far as this situation is concerned, especially combined with the Ace of Cups and everything that I just talked about, it's possible that the worst might be over. It's possible that the agency begins to heal. But this, unfortunately, is not going to be an immediate thing. And it's going to be very difficult for them to do. If they have any chance or any hope of rebuilding their reputation and rebuilding or regaining that trust that they once had, it's going to be like years worth of hard work just to be able to get there. But there is hope for a gradual recovery if they're willing, again, to take accountability, face the consequences, and move forward with humility. Unfortunately, though, with the King of Wands and the King of Pentacles being reversed and the Hermit being reversed, I just don't see it happening. Not for as long as whoever is represented by these cards is with the company. But yeah, overall, going back to the question that I originally asked, which was, are they going to be able to recover as an agency, or is their reputation just too far gone? And so overall, with all the cards that I pulled, I'm really seeing that they're going to struggle. They're going to struggle financially. They're going to suffer some serious financial losses, and those losses are going to come from missed opportunities. The missed opportunities are a direct result of the scandal that is currently happening. It's because their reputation is basically being tarnished or has been tarnished by everything that's been released so far. They're now going to miss out on financial opportunities in the future, and it's going to make it very, very difficult for them to continue to stay afloat as a company. And it's also going to make it very difficult for them to regain any type of trust, not just the trust of the public, but also the trust of others within the industry itself. I'm also seeing that the poor leadership, as I talked about, the King of Pentacles reversed, the King of Wands reversed, the poor leadership is adding fuel to the fire instead of actually helping the situation. The leadership is not able to have the maturity and the wisdom enough to understand this is a time for them to be humble. This is a time for them to own up to their mistakes. This is a time for them to be genuine and sincere and allow themselves to be emotionally vulnerable enough to just make things right. Like genuinely just take accountability and make things right. Unfortunately, what I am seeing instead is that the leadership is too prideful for that at this particular point in time. And not only are they too prideful to admit just how much damage has been caused, but they also don't have the maturity and the experience and the wisdom to properly navigate the future of the company. They don't have the ability to look beyond the current moment or the very near future in terms of how they're going to fix things for the company long term. They just don't have the ability to actually look that far ahead and make decisions now that will affect them beneficially later on. I'm seeing that with the Ace of Cups and the Ten of Swords reversed, there is a potential for recovery and for renewal, but it's not big. And again, it's going to be a lot of hard work. It's going to be literally years of hard work before they are able to reach a point where they could say that people trust them again and actually want to work with them and for them again. The damage, make no mistake, the damage of what has happened is severe. And as I said, I feel like the longer time goes on, we're going to eventually find out just the true extent of the damage. We only know a limited amount of information at this point in time, but the damage, both short-term and long-term, is definitely going to be felt for at least a few years. There are things that aren't going to be completely reversed. Like some of the things that happen, some of the damage that they caused is not repairable. It's not reversible, but there is still hope for people to recover and for people to heal from the betrayal, from the deceit, from the abuse of power, and from the financial loss that has happened. But they'll probably never fully recover. Not at least to the extent that they once were. There are definitely going to be long-term consequences. All right, so that was my reading on the VShojo situation that is happening currently. If any new information is released, then I'll most likely do another reading. How did you all feel about the cards that I pulled? How did you all feel about my interpretations of the cards? How did you all feel about everything that I said and the conclusions that I came to? How do you feel about the situation and everything that's been happening? Please leave a comment below. I'd love to hear all of your opinions on the matter. Anyways, thanks for watching this video. Stay safe. Bye.